verse 69 last week has gently reminded us the difference between the wise person, who is called a Sthita-Prajna. Sthita-Prajna specifically means one who is firm in knowledge. So this means that anything that you know very well, you are firm in that area of speciality. Why are you firm in it? Because you have thought it through, you have found yourself in challenging situations where you had time to apply it, you deliberately took out some teachings and you looked at situations in the light of this teaching. So you did this for a while until eventually the knowledge completely took place. And for the one where the knowledge completely takes place, that means you're no longer a knower of Brahman, you are Brahman. You no longer know yourself to be this, causeless cause, but your overall understanding, which is unceasing and permanent about who is it that I am, the nature of my existence, is free. And we use an example from the Upanishads to demonstrate of a golden ornament, such as a bangle, and you have next door to the bangle a ring, and they're both wonderful bangles, and they serve a function. They have an empirical function. They are worn and they provide their services to the world, and they are used and purchased. That means people purchase you for their services, for their attention, and you also purchase other people. This is called engagement. And you have a lovely time as a bangle talking to a ring. So sometimes you can come together and have a fun time, right? The bangle ring married together. Sometimes they will, go their own ways, but they're both enjoying a relative function with a certain form. A bangle does not look like a ring, and a ring does not look like a bangle. There's a difference in terms of their function, their size, their weight, their personality, how desirable they are, to whom they are desirable, and how they look at themselves. Now, speaking of how they look at themselves, suppose a bangle looks at itself as just one single bangle, right? It's different from all of the other ornaments. And its understanding of self, that means of who it is, will thereby be conducive with a bangle. And thereby, if the world doesn't value a bangle, then how is the bangle going to feel about that? It's going to feel, unappreciated, and it's going to turn into a complex. And then the bangle will sometimes go to a bangle community so that it can finally be seen and validated. Oh, I am now a bangle. People are seeing me as a bangle. So the bangle's life will be consistent with its identity. And thereby it will then go and buy objects that are for bangles. It's not going to buy objects that are for a ring. So its decisions, its ability to think about itself, all of that will be determined by how the bangle sees oneself. And if you take the word oneself, just sees self. Conversely, if you take a ring, it gets pushed on a finger, and a ring often gets wet, it gets dirty if you go gardening. It is hardly seen by people because nobody looks at your fingers unless they're, making a move on you. The ring is, it's kind of like going through a rough time in most cases. He has to punch, he goes to a boxing match, and the ring constantly has to make physical contact. So it's taking a lot of abuse, this fella, Mr. Ring or Mrs. Ring. And the ring has also a understanding of self. The only difference is, unlike the bangle, its understanding of self will be not entirely different, but also different at the same time. Not entirely different means that the ring will still appreciate itself as a ring. So it has the same understanding as the bangle, doesn't it? It doesn't say, I am not the ring. It doesn't say I am not the body mind. It doesn't say I am not these thoughts. I am not this, life of mine. It appreciates a certain empiricalness about itself. And it knows this empiricalness, there's nothing right or wrong about it, because it was given the shape of a ring. It was not given the shape of a bangle. And this being given a shape of your life, your body, your thoughts, your mind, we call this incidental reality. And then you say, incidental of what? Well, it is an incidental reality of the gold. So the gold, right, went through a apparent change, and for whatever reasons, it produced itself in form of a bangle, in the form of a gold. Then ring, okay? So the ring understands its self, its nature to be but the gold, which is inhering also in the bangle. So this means that suppose that you're a bangle and you see a ring over there, and the ring suppose it gets glories, it's a very special ring that's so big, how they carry these big rings, it's no longer these small rings, like hip-hop artists, huge ring, right? It's forcing you to see it. And the bangle gets jealous, right? It says, I don't like their being in this popular position. I'm a nobody now, right? Whereas you've got a bracelet, is having the same complex. The bracelet is saying, I am, at the ankle of the foot, suppose it's like that kind of bracelet. And I am like the lowest position of society. And, this bangle has it so much luckier than I am. So they're both having a complex in reference to other bangles and ornaments and so on, right? But the ring has a very different kind of a relationship. It understands and appreciates its self nature as the one which inheres in all. So this means when the golden ring looks at other ornaments, a different kind of process goes on, because it can look at other ornaments as glory of self, because they are actually self. Thereby, its whole complexion reduces. This golden ring further understands one more interesting concept, and I will now take us out of this golden ornaments and ring, and I will bring this more closer to a more human level. So this is how a teaching works. We provide you a metaphor, and then we get you out of the metaphor and then bring it down to real life. So suppose that you do not, in fact, not suppose, but you don't see the cause of a tree. Does that mean the cause of the tree is not there? For example, take a seed, do you see the intelligence inside that seed of a tree, because of which an entire assembly, a complex assembly of the bud and fruits and seeds and the intelligence, how deep the roots will go, how wide the tree will spread, how the tree will react to the seasons, how it will sufficiently hold water during times of drought, how it will convert the process of sunlight into chemical energy through photosynthesis, when will it start to produce the fruits at what time of the year, which directions will the branches spread, how many leaves will it produce, how wide will the leaves be, and those veins inside the leaves, what will their function be, and how they will distribute the nutrients, but also absorb the sunlight and carry it back to the roots. Can you see all of that? Can you see the intelligence that makes that tree what it is? Can you see that? The answer is no. What do you see? You only see the tree, don't you? You only see the effect. You only see the fruit or the shrub or the bark, or the color, the pigmentation of the leaf. You don't see the cause, the invisible cause because of which that tree is what it is. So this means that, like this, the unwise person, they don't see the cause of the universe. They don't see the cause of the tree. You can apply the same example to the entire universe. Where is this cause? Where is this intelligence that connects the food and the sun and the sunlight and the air and the lungs and the seasons and the birds and the ducks, and how the antelope will, sip some water, and then the crocodile will potentially attack the antelope, and the crocodile will be afraid of the hippopotamus. Where is that intelligence stored? Who carries all of these connections where everything in nature is so well intricately connected that nothing is independent of itself? It has a connection to at least 10 other things around it. Take a bee. A bee knows where to build its beehive, how to build a beehive. Why does a bee build a beehive that is a octagon shape? It doesn't matter if it's a pentagon or an octagon. How does it learn that? Who tells it to build that kind of a shape? And where to find the pollen in the flowers, and how particularly to extract the nectar from the flowers? How does the bee, have you ever thought about it, know which flower it has pollinated yesterday, so it doesn't waste time pollinating the same flower twice? When it's circulating around a field of daisies and it lands on one flower and extracts the nectar, how does it know that I've extracted nectar from that flower out of 3,000 other flowers in the nearby region? Could you do this, by the way? Could you keep track so well of which flower you visited amongst many, especially when you are amidst smaller than the flower? And then the bee will have the intelligence to travel back to its beehive and to fill the saps of the beehive with the particular juices that it's extracted, so that the beehive can use that for its food later on. So my point is that anything in creation that you observe has a purpose, has a function, has a place. What you don't see is the intelligence in whom and because of which all creatures are what they are. They do what they do. You do what you do. The life that you have is the life that you have and not somebody else. You don't see that intelligence. You only see the bee, the beehive, the flower, the tree, the fruit, the seed, the effects. Therefore, because the unwise person does not see the cause, what do they conclude? Two things. First, there is no such thing as cause. Thereby, books are authored in a manner to show you there's no God. Second, because I don't see the cause, it thus must be not here. And thereby we have how many schools that are supporting an idea that God is elsewhere? So many. In fact, 99.999999999% of all spirituality is this understanding, where one thing is there and another thing is here. This is called Advaita. And thereby, the wise person comes to see that within this entire framework of effects, there is one universal cause, which is what we call knowledge and power, which in one word is Ishvara, which in whose presence all things take place, are what they are connected to other things, and without having to read any kind of manual, know their swadharma. You and I, because we're given free will, we have to ask, what is my swadharma? It's a common thing that we have as human beings. What is my duty? What should I be doing, right? We've all had this time in our lives. What is the right thing to be done in my life? Am I doing the right thing? Does a dog have to ask this question? No. The dog just knows right now it's time to have a bone in my mouth and just chew upon it. Right now it's time to play with my owner. Right now it's time to sleep. Right now it's time to go and cuddle with other dogs. The dog or a cat has no such questions because they are programmed to, by this intelligence, to perform their swadharma, their own personal thing. When it comes to human beings, we get a little bit confused. So you have to now ask, would you rather listen to the question, be a dog who doesn't have these complex questions about what is it that I am to do in this life? However, you don't have free will. You can't make your life into something different. Or you're given free will, the ability to make your life as you wish. However, it does come with the challenges of questions like, am I doing the right thing? And what should I be doing? And what should I not be doing? Which one would you like? I think we can all agree with the latter, right? Otherwise, Ishvara is so kind that if you said, no, I like the dog example, no problems. After death, you will probably be my dog and I will take care of you. So Ishvara is so benevolent like that. So this means all possibilities are here and you're given within this field of Ishvara's possibilities to ask yourself, what is it that is important for me? What do I want to do with my remaining days while living? And by putting certain causes into the field, you get the very effects manifested. And then you can sculpt them and change them until you're refining and living a decently helpful and enjoyable and prosperous life. So it's really up to you. So going back, verse 69 wants to point out the contrast between the wise and the unwise. And because the wise recognizes the presence of intelligence in all things. Now, I know some of us, before I move forward, are asking, what do you mean by intelligence in all things? Well, haven't we done the Satya Mithya analysis several verses ago? Okay. So I will spend a little bit of time doing that in the verse 71, just to remind us, but I'm not going to go into too much detail. Why is it important that, or how is it going to make a difference to a ornament which sees itself as a gold, which is inhering in all things, which is the truth of all things, as opposed to seeing yourself as one of the many? How would that make a difference in terms of decision making? I would like to open this up where you can tell me now, what difference does it make if you understand yourself to be one ornament or the gold? What difference does it make to you in terms of decision-making ability?
So if I recognize that there is a commonality between all, then the rag dvesh is no more there. There is no comparison, and the all the differences created by duality go away. So therefore, then I am likely to be more sthit pragya. And before I end my sentence, I want to compliment all because today we have completed one full year in this course.
Wow. Thank you. Yeah, it's amazing. Thank you all. I appreciate all of us. So Gautam has mentioned that our decision making changes in a way that if I see myself as one ornament, then there's a pressure to go and attend to things that I believe an ornament needs for its survival, right? The bangle needs whatever it needs. So there's a lot of pressure to be someone, to carry ideals, ideas, and personalities. And by reducing this identity to gold, to literally reducing, because the ornament reduces into gold, then your likes and dislikes lose meaning. Because before, I needed, suppose, something for my, identity to be big. But now that whole idea doesn't make sense anymore. Okay, so this is Gautam's statement, which could be expanded by Vijay if he has a different take.
Yeah, I feel if you see yourself as the gold, not the ornaments, then you know the permanent nature, because gold is there before the ornament was there. And after the ornament is melted or whatever, gold still remains. So you know the permanent nature of that substratum or whatever we call it. That gives us much more stability in whatever the way we deal with life. We know that, okay, this is all just a temporary intermediate drama that's happening. We can probably see it like that to some extent.
Yeah, absolutely. And it also helps us with our resilience. So take resilience, for example. What does it mean in terms of resilience? How does this make you cope with challenges in life when you know yourself not to be affected by them? What would you say? Do you take things so personally? Do you get hurt so easily now?
No.
Why not? Quantify for me in real life, from your experience, what process goes in you that makes you much more resilient and equanimous when things don't go your way. Understanding that there is a much larger picture here than just this one person that's going through these endless, cycles of ups and downs. Michael.
You understand that as an individual, that you're part of a much larger order, and as such, you don't take them personally. Like, you realize that there's more than just you and your thing, and that in addition to that, there's also opportunity for growth. So you don't take it as something that's negative or positive. You just see it as something that you can either learn from or help you understand who you are and what your place is.
I'm not sure how to describe this, but with time, when I analyze that we all are one and it's just one entity, it just comes naturally. The empathy towards people, for you to understand situations, for you to deal with situations and not take things personally, it just came naturally to me. I didn't even have to try. When something doesn't go my way, I just know it's gonna go my way somehow.
Mm-hmm. Brilliant. So what Aditi is saying is that now that the gold din, ring is no longer just sort of this, for me, this mine and my world and my desires are all that matters. There's a much larger order here. Thereby its ability to, to care, to reach out becomes a lot more natural because it's not holding on to this single identity of the many.
Yeah, I had a thought about the question you asked when it was like, how would you approach decision making if you were golden or gold? The thought that crossed my mind was I would actually be less likely to use my free will if I believed I was gold. Because when I believe I'm gold, I kind of just I feel like I lose the will to want anything or try anything, because in that position, I've got everything because I am everyone. So there was a little bit of a battle in my mind when you said that, Andre, about, I just feel like I would just lose like all desire and all ambition and I wouldn't do anything.
Got it. Okay. So Amrita is, I will call it an objection. She's stating that how do I resolve a a certain confusion. I don't have a ring here, but I will borrow this. It's the same principle, right? You've got clay and you've got a pot, okay? And can you see this, Amrita? So it's not a different thing.
Yes.
Can you
Yes.
explain why this is the same as the golden ornament and gold?
No, can you ask me again, Andre? Sorry.
Okay, sure. So my question is, so initially I used the example of a ring who understands its very nature to be the gold. Here, I'm talking about a pot which understands its very nature to be the
clay. Yeah. Got it.
So now the question that you're posing is that if this pot suddenly understand itself as the clay, then all of its free will go away. That's what you're saying. Okay.
I think the desire to use the free will would go
Okay,
away.
good. But tell me this, is there any real difference between this pot and the clay? So is there any real difference between the pot and the clay? The answer is no. So to say that I will lose a desire, you see, it doesn't quite, if you look at that question, what are you implying when you say, I who am already that which I'm seeking, right? I'm going to lose something. You see, nothing, if you think about it, nothing really changed. Only your shift kind of, it changed, there was a shift, a cognitive shift that one who had free will was as good as what? Was as good as what? The pot.
Yeah.
That
okay,
one,
I got you.
that one
Yeah.
who was making the decisions was good as the pot, which was very different from this pot, right? But now you come to understand that one who is making the decisions is not different from the very thing that I'm seeking. So now knowing this, what has to change? Nothing. Everything continues as normal. You still make decisions. You still do what you got to do. You still have desires, but you understand all of those desires are like this pot. The relationship between desire and you is between this pot and clay. Wherever there's a desire, what is there? The clay.
The clay is still there. Yeah.
Wherever
Okay,
there
I
is
got it.
there,
Yeah.
actually. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you.
Lorena?
Just going to say, with the understanding, the complete understanding, it's like a paradigm shift where you realize there's no real true gain or loss. It's that complete understanding that you are not your karma. So anything that's happening, so the Paramattika Satyam would be just the complete understanding there's no true, or there's only apparent gain and loss. And from the Vyavaharika Satyam, it's the actuality of what's happening is impermanent and transient, and that Pratibhasika Satyam is your own distortion or your own interpretation of what you're perceiving. So it's having that full understanding that takes the edge off whatever's happening. It makes you see that everything's transient and that all things shall pass, and that there's no real gain or loss. It's only apparent gain or loss.
So what Lorena is saying when she says there's no real gain or loss, I'll just make it more visual. If this pot, right, suddenly gains a little extra size, right, it becomes bulky, right? Is there any real gain in reference to the clay? No. There's only gain in reference to the form. If you have another thought, or you can even convert this into a thought, right? Suppose you have a thought, oh, I am not, this is a thought, I am not good enough. Wherever there's a thought, I am not good enough, what is there? What is still there in that thought? The very substance because of which that thought exists. So in this example, that substance is the clay. Now, where does the unwise person's attention always go to? The clay or the pot? Always towards the pot, towards the thought, towards the doubt, towards the size. Oh, I'm big, I am thin, I am tired, I am smart, I am intelligent. All of these intelligence, smart, this and that, hungry, not good enough, or I need this, I need that. All of these are thoughts. The wise person's understanding is wherever there is a thought, that's exactly where I am. And that I, which is the content of that thought, is the very content of all things in this universe, of all things, of all pot and ware in this example. Okay? Of all, a million different pots you present, a million different pots, and they're all kind of, competing for each other. But there's one pot, and you call this the Jivanmukta pot. Look at this. You got a Jiva pot, and you got a Jiva. You add one word, Mukta pot. What's the difference? Both of them are the same substance. One of them takes self. When I say self, I mean the clay, which is the whole thing. All that is here is clay. It takes self, clay, to be as good as one of the many. Thereby, all of its identity is based on that reality. So it's got a hard time kind of reconciling, I want to be better, I want to be bigger, I have to be someone, I'm not good enough, I'm not beautiful enough, I have to be stronger. This is the narrative of the world. This is how all entertainment is built. I'm bored, right? All of these things, because the spot is always looking to make itself bigger. And then you have a tiny pot. Look at this, an even tinier pot. Okay, we got 3 pots here, right? See the tiny? Now look at this tiny pot. And this tiny pot, its identity, it's enjoying something that all these other 2 pots are also enjoying, but these other 2 pots don't know it. So they're missing out on something huge. In fact, they're missing out on the whole thing, because their understanding of self is only as good as I am a big man. Look at me. I'm much bigger than you are. Ha, ha, ha. I'm going to bully you. Bully, bully, bully. And then this guy in between is sort of, maybe in between. She's got some complexes, entitlement. I deserve, just because I exist, I'm entitled to all of the resources in the entire universe. Everyone needs to bow down to me and worship me because I'm so good. This is the complex of this spot. So they're kind of constantly going through complexes, and all of their thoughts and complexes are nothing but more pots. So all of their attention is always going on the name and form, name and form. And then the tiny pot, which I'm holding now, comes along and it says, so what I've been doing all this time, my entire life, is always giving importance to the thoughts, to who I am, to the shape of me, to the size of me, to how intelligently big I am, how intelligently small, how pretty I am. No, let me buy some makeup pot. Okay, I bought some makeup pot now. Let me rub makeup pot. Rub, rub, rub. Oh, I'm now so pretty. Now I'm going to attract a big man. Now it goes to the big man. Hey, look at me. Look from me from all the angles. And the big man's like, yeah, I went to the gym. I built myself up quite a lot. You and I need to be together. And then they start to kiss, kiss, kiss. And then, another pot pops out. And then this pot that pops out has the same complex. It too looks around in this world and sees other bigger pots. And then it too starts to form a complex. And now goes, oh, I need to also add more potness onto myself. The game never ends.
Andre Mays.
Yes, Gautam.
Yeah, the pot that has realized that it is just the clay, he will still have 2 narratives. One, that even if my name form is lost, I will still exist. So that is very, very, freeing thought. But second narrative, that so long as I am still a pot, I am still required to do the ideal behavior that the pot must do, so that his swadharma has to stay. So therefore, the question that we heard some time back, one narrative that I will no more have a free will, does not arise, because that free will tell you that so long as I'm embodied as a pot, I should behave as an ideal pot.
Okay. So Gautam is providing a nice little distinction, is that, see, if this pot breaks and you understand yourself to be, I'm going to take a bigger one, understand yourself to be as big as the pot, and you see yourself as a pot, is there a fear of death, the breakage of this pot? Of course there is, because you see yourself as a pot. The pot will break one day. That's where all fear comes, because what's going to end? Me. This is going to end. Because where is your I placed? Your understanding of self. It's placed in one of the many. So what Gautam is saying is that if my identity has shifted from the pot to the clay, then sure, the name and form, the person called Andre or Gautam, will break one day. But what's going to remain is the exact same substance that was there, giving existence to Andre, to Gautam, to Carrie, to Greg. That existence, which is the truth of all things, which is inhering in all things, which is the substance of all things, remains exactly the same in the past, present, and future. And that substance is my real nature right now. And how is that substance known to you right now? It's known to you as I am. I exist and I am aware. Now, I want to bring one distinction. We often in spirituality have this idea and we say, you know, I am not the body and the mind. Okay? This has a place, but it's preliminary. It's to show you initially, because you start out with a very deep notion that you are as good as the pot. So someone has to tell you, I am not the pot. That's the first step. I am not the pot. Oh, thank God, because there was always something in me telling me that I'm much bigger than this little person. Thank God. Thank you very much. And then the guru pot comes over and says, okay, actually what I said about you not being the body and mind, it's actually not true. Did you lie to me? You're a guru. How dare you lie? I wasn't lying. I was only using a preliminary teaching telling you to drop the idea or to shake you up from what you thought you were, to be as good as the pot. Now I can tell you that actually everything about you, you see, when I say the word you, whether you see yourself as a pot or whether you see yourself as an arm or you see yourself as, a tree or the wall of your house or the very headphones you're wearing or the screen that you're looking at or the seat that's being felt that you're sitting on or the very air that you're breathing and the very space in whom your room is now located and your body is located, and the very face that's being seen right now, and the very words that are being heard by your brain and your brain that's hearing these words, all of that is nothing but one without a second, the clay. So I don't have to go and say, I am not the body. I might as well just point to a bird poop and say, that is I. Really? Or point to a mountain and say, that is also me seeming to be over there. Or point to the air, can't really point to that. The very air that's being breathed in is also I. It is one self, one substance, which is taking the name and form of the air, space, bird poop, mountain, hair, thought, idea. So I really want you to understand when we say all that is here is one without a second. So you cannot quite say, what about free will, and all of that, as Gautam very nicely said, has a purpose. And while there is a pot, it has to use its free will because you're given this form for a short time. And you have to think, you have to get your business done. You have to go to the groceries and make decisions. That will be there as long as the spot is here. One day the pot will break, then you can, then you don't have to ask such questions anymore. But while there is a pot, I have two duties, as Gautam said. First one, what is my real truth? That which never breaks, never makes decisions, never moves. Never really kind of, I know it's moving now in space, but because space is different from the pot, right? So you think, this is different from space. But even suppose even space in which this is moving is also made out of clay. It's hard to imagine, but we'll try at least. I don't really move. But you feel like you're moving. That's okay. Apparently you're moving. Apparently the wave is moving in the ocean. It seems to be moving from one point to the other. But actually, it's always ever the water. There's nothing ever but the water. Now, the wave will fall one day. The pain will get ulcers and cancer. And the wave will have cancerous waves, cancerous diseases. And the wave will fade away and age. And one day the wave will fall. That is an empirical order of reality. That's what we call vyavaharika. As Lorena said, it has to happen. Now, when I ask the question, the wave that understands its nature to be not the wave, but the water, which is the truth of all waves, then how does its self-image change? And as we said, it loses its complexities. No more superiority or inferiority. Tell me, how are you, right, any better from this? Both are made out of the clay. Both depend on the clay. How are you better than this, or this is better than that? You see, when I say better, it can only be in reference to the name and form, right? You are better than me because you're bigger. But for the wise person, there's no better or worse. It's just you both have a certain function in the world. You have a function, I have a function. That we can appreciate. But there is one cause that is because of which both functions exist. Now, when it comes to self-image, we tend to often think about sacrifice in a negative way. And I'll bring this forward because it's important when we think about, I've raised children and I had a, business and I've done this for my boss and I have ultimately, spent so much time on my husband or wife. I sacrificed 50 years of my life, and now I don't feel like I've attended to my own, needs, and I just kind of threw this away, and nobody ever paid me any due respect, and I just threw it all down the drain. Sometimes people say this or feel like this. But is it really like this? Have you actually sacrificed and done all of this for somebody else? Because that's what you mean when you say, I've sacrificed for you. You haven't, unless you're an idiot, right? But people are not idiots. Haven't you done that because you were getting something out of it? Perhaps you wanted to be needed. You wanted validation. Or you were bored. So first thing that the wise teacher have to understand, there is no such thing as sacrifice. You're always ever doing everything for your sake alone because you're getting something out of it, whether we admit it or not. The truth is, all your life, who's the center of your life? I am. It's never the other person. We may think I'm giving to you, I'm sacrificing for you, but why are you sacrificing for him or her or that? Because it pleases you in some way or the other. It makes you happy. It gives you something. So the first thing we have to do when it comes to self-image is drop this notion that, I threw my life away. You didn't throw your life away. Believe it or not, you were getting something out of it. No matter how small, it was for your sake, actually. So self-image, when it comes to self-image, because the original question was, how does my life change when I change my identity from ornament to gold? The answer here is, I have a healthy self-image. Now, what does healthy self-image mean? And then we bring two words in. If I say to you, selfish and selfless, like, what is this now? Selfish and selfless. What is a healthy self-image? Well, look at this. A selfless, when we say I'm being selfless, a selfless person, what does a selfless person do? They share, right? They give, right? But who are you giving for? You're giving for yourself. So you're being selfless, but who are you doing it for? Yourself. So what is then selfless, really? It's creating a win-win situation, isn't it? It's doing it for yourself, so you're winning, and you're also contributing to the other side, so they're winning too. Now, what about selfish? What is selfish? Who are you doing as a selfish person? Who am I doing actions for? Myself. But is there a concern on the other side? No. So both selfish and selfless, both of them are doing actions for one's own sake. But what's the difference between selfish and selfless? One is creating win-win situations, and the other is creating win-lose situations. You see? So it's not a matter of saying, oh, I am selfless. Hey, what do you mean by that? You're actually not entirely selfless if you think about it. You're selfless, selfish. So we've got selfless, selfish, and we've got selfish, selfish. So now, what is a healthy self-image of a wise person? Is it selfish, selfish, or selfless, selfish? Selfless, selfish. One of the books called it enlightened self-interest. I have a self-interest, but it is educated self-interest. It is an enlightened self-interest. That's a healthy self-image. So not for a moment does a wise person fool themselves and go, I am being so selfless teaching. You heard this before, I'm just an instrument of Ishvara. I'm just teaching you because I'm an instrument of Ishvara. That is true for all of us. We're all instruments of Ishvara, so there's nothing special about that statement. But ultimately, why is a teacher teaching? Because they're being selflessly selfish. Because it's always centered on I. Brihadaranyaka Upanishad says a long line, long verse. It says, you don't love for your husband's sake, you love for your sake. The husband doesn't love the wife for wife's sake. He loves for his sake. The wife doesn't love the husband for his sake. She loves for her sake. Parents don't have children for children's sake. Parents have children for their sake. You don't have fun with another person for his or her sake. You have fun for your sake. You don't go to a party to give others a good time. You go to a party to give yourself a good time. Now, if you can give them a good time also, that's wonderful. Everything you ever do in your entire life, from birth to death, it's always been for your sake. Why? Because there's only one self, one clay. So in essence, you've always ever been doing everything for self. Love of the self, love of the self, love of the self. So what is the most lovable thing there is? Self.
And having consideration.
And having consideration for others, which is an expression of your understanding that I also shine and reflect in all other things. Look at this. What is one common denominator in this world that we all do? We look in this world for objects. We participate with objects. So who is participating with objects? I am participating with objects, right? First person. So I say to you again, who is engaging with objects? You say this to yourself. What's your answer? I am engaging with objects. Okay. Objects change. Your objects that you're pursuing are different from my objects. I pursue programming, you pursue, I don't know what you do, knitting or dog walking, whatever you do. I pursue something else. Vijay pursues different from Asha and Ricky and Aditi and Amrita. We all pursue different objects, but who is pursuing objects? I am pursuing objects. Now, what's on the other side of the object? Why am I pursuing an object? Never mind what the object is. This is done. Already the object is pursued. But why am I pursuing an object?
For needs to be fulfilled.
For fulfillment. Anything else?
To get some joy out of it.
To get joy. In other words, now who wants joy? Who wants fulfillment? The one that's on the other side of the object. And who is that other side? I am. So the object always changes. There's always one I on the other side of objects. One I chasing up, never mind what the objects are, but what is always the same on the other side of the object? Fulfillment. And what's always the same on this other side of the object, on the left side of the object? I. So then what's the nature of this I? If I is always chasing objects for the sake of fulfillment, of happiness, of joy, then what must be the nature of this I that is seeking? The very...
it is a lack. It's not having what it wants, so it's chasing it, probably. Is that how you look at it? It feels incomplete.
It feels incomplete until I come to my nature of joy or fulfillment. The object was just a means for that. And this is why in Vedanta we say, what's the nature of this chit of awareness, sat and chit, existence awareness, which I am? It is ananda. It is fullness. It is happiness. It is completion. Now, when I chase and I get what I want, which is always going to be happiness and fullness, what is your experience? What is the experience from the standpoint of that I in that moment? I am one with myself. I am full. Nothing's missing. Nothing's incomplete. Everything is here right now. Nothing else is desired right now.
But right now it's momentary.
And the momentary is indeed just, little glimpses. Little glimpses. The point is, it is momentary, but it is still showing. It's amazing how the world is an open book. Think about this. Everyone in every culture, all battles fought was for the sake of what? Winning. So that I can be on the other side, be happy. So what has the entire world and you and I have ever always been pursuing? Myself. And what's the nature of that self? The I that is pursuing? Fullness. You always pursue what you are. You never pursue what you're not. Nobody does an object or engages with an object to suffer on the other side. You always do it to feel a sense of fullness, a sense of completion, fulfillment, tranquility, peace, happiness, whatever words you want to give it. Therefore, it shows you thus must be, the I must be of the nature of happiness. And what does then Vedanta show you? It shows you that that very happiness, that very fullness, that I already is right now. So you don't have to chase an object and get on the other side. Vedanta shows you what is over here, the I that's on the left side, is already that fullness which you're chasing. You don't need an object, because the object is only going to give you a glimpse of that fullness, isn't it? And that glimpse is not going to last, is it? So what does then Vedanta show you? How does a wise person then enjoy permanent fulfillment? When Krishna says, as he will soon, he says, the wise person enjoys permanent fulfillment or peace. What does that mean? Does that mean they're constantly chasing objects? No. What are they doing? They're understanding that whatever is on the other side, that happiness, that fullness, I already am right now. I don't have to chase a million experiences to prove to myself that I'm fullness. Because the fact is, just the mere fact of chasing for fullness shows you that you are fullness.
I have felt this naturally. I have chased a lot of things in my life, love, money, especially love, that I was longing for several years. I've cried, I've suffered, always wanting that in the third person. And there comes a time in my life where I felt that love was within me. It was those 5 hours in my life where I actually experienced my soul and how I felt and how I was within the soul nature, like how calm it was, how it knew that I was what I was looking for all this time.
Yeah.
And then at that time, a lot of perspective changed. And after those 5 hours, as a human body, because I have a mind, I have a heart that I listen to, and then I forgot once again that I was that soul. And I guess we all are lost souls who have forgotten that we are souls and we are one. And as they say, we are Brahma.
Yes.
And
So-
then with time, I guess I just sit with myself every day and remind my mind and body that you are Brahma. It's still there inside you. That soul that you felt even for 5 hours is still there. That is the real you. You're not longing for objects or money or people. It's all you. It's all yours. To start with, it was yours. So I felt that in a moment, and I was looking for a community who might have felt this way. And it's just a great opportunity to listen to people who felt the same way.
Yeah, and it's such a relief, especially if you have a taste of that. It can go a long way. It can hold you strong. So, I know what you're saying, because people can have these, sometimes these temporary experiences, but they still go a long way to give you so much hope and keep you upright. And so it can help you to go through this journey and say, hey, I am already that. It's not like I've lost it. I may not, have it or enjoy it right now, but I am that all the time. So slowly, as the mind starts to think about this and listen to Vedanta, you come to see that, you can have a million different experiences. They don't make a statement about you, because you're always ever one. You can have a different, thoughts about, how I am, big, or I am limitless, or I'm infinite. The point is, the wise person rests in the understanding that no matter what arises, it is only ever one clay without a second. So the clay has never gone. You can have a very beautiful memory right now of being one with all that is. Look at this. It's a memory. That's what a memory is. Just another clay. And it pops up in your mind, right? So this is supposed to be your mind. It pops up in your mind. Maybe we'll take a smaller one. It falls in your mind and you're like, oh, I am one. Wow, so beautiful. Yay, yay, yay. It's so pretty. I love this. Oh, please don't go away. And it goes away. The wise person understands whether you come, what's the truth of that memory? I am. Whether an unpleasant memory comes in, what's the content of that memory? The clay. So the wise person's understanding is the clay never leaves. I'm already here right now. Nothing is added, nothing is subtracted. That's why we keep on chanting Purnamada, Purnamidam. That is the whole. This here is the whole. In other words, what is that? The clay is the whole. This pot is the whole. You take the piece from the whole, what remains? Still the same clay. You haven't taken or subtracted anything. Thereby the wise person doesn't get caught up. Oh, my thought is, defining me. Oh, now my thought, of me being limitless is gone. Oh, I am no longer limitless. You understand? Because whether the thought comes or whether the thought goes, what is still here? The very substance which was there before, right now, and after. This is called abiding in oneself as oneself. The pot is abiding in the clay as the clay, not as different from the clay, as the clay. Now, is there any place throughout this pot where the clay is not? Can you find one place? Let me look. Let me look where, let me look for where I'm not. Can you find any place where you're not? So now, why do we want thoughts of Brahman? Why do I want a thought of Brahman? You might as well have a thought of I am a man. That's a thought. That's just another thought like this. The truth of that thought is the clay. You see where we go wrong? We want special thoughts. You want special thoughts. I want this thought. I don't want this thought anymore. Now I want this thought. But where's the wise person's understanding? No matter what thought you feed me or don't feed me, I am already the final thing right now. I never lost myself. Whether the memory or the beautiful experience comes that you've had in your ayahuasca or mushrooms or DMT or LSD or whatever you want to call it, or Savikalpa Samadhi, Nirvikalpa Samadhi, or Shaktipat, whatever you want to name, I went through all of them myself. Who is still here right now as I always was? The very clay that never left. That clay we in Sanskrit call Brahman. And what is that Brahman? How is that Brahman known to you now? As your body, as your thought, as the world, as the air you're breathing, as the space, as everything. So can you ever be apart from yourself? Can you ever be away from the reality? No. But then why do we want the reality to be a special thing? Because our attention is on the name and form. Therefore, the wise person has dropped this idea of looking for names and forms to satisfy me. Wherever there is a name and form, that's exactly where the substance is. And that substance never leaves. And in that, I take refuge in. Just imagine how much equanimity and peace of mind this gives you. One day the pot will break. For some of us sooner than later. But I'm never going to break. Me, the existent one, which is the truth of this whole universe right now, I will never break. I will never go out of existence. Doesn't this give you a certain peace of mind? Even if you may not completely understand this reality right now, doesn't this give you a certain peace of mind? A certain reassurance? That one day your body will go, no doubt. But you, I, will never go. The very I that is here now, that you know yourself to be as an existent, ordinary, existent I, self. One day the body will go. There will be a slight change that will be felt because the mind in that moment is still there. The moment that change is over, that very I that you know yourself to be now, body gone, I still am. You don't have to wait to die to experience this. It's just knowledge. You understand it. It is the case because all that is here is one. Only the names and forms keep changing, cycle after cycle. Once upon a time, I was what? And you were what? A little child, who knew so little about the world. And then your mama taught you to be a big person. And now you're a big, responsible person who takes accountability, thinks about your responses, who doesn't philosophize whether we have free will or not. You just do what has to be done to the best of your ability. And in so doing, you never lose sight that you are never apart from self. That's the wise person. And as we will soon see, that you cannot tell a wise person from a particular trait that they're exuding. This will be verse 70. Before I do, Vaibhava.
Just wanted to share. So I think this was a very, very fascinating, sort of discussion for me. there was a question asked on, when you realize your true nature, or you have a fleeting understanding of the true nature, why do you still work, or why do you still act, or why would you then still find the motivation? So one of the frameworks which sort of helped me here is, when we are born in this human body and born on this earth, we go through broadly three experiences, which is do, which is act; have, which is receive some benefits; and be, which is experience satisfaction or experience happiness. The problem is we experience all this in the wrong order. We do so that we can have, and when we have, that's when we be. And the right order is be, do, and have. So be is your nature as it stands. It does not depend on the doing and the having. Be is as you stand. And then the question is, if you are there, if you have the be, why do you do? You do because you can. You do because you must. You do because that's what is your dharma. And then when you operate on that principle, the have by definition naturally becomes a consequence. So you don't even have to force yourself for it to become a consequence. It actually becomes that way. Because then the dependency on the being, on the doing and the having goes away, because once you make the being the starting point. So instead of do, have, be, which is how I used to naturally operate, I'm trying to operate be, do, and have.
Yeah. The only refinement I would have to that is removing the be. You don't have to be. This pot is innocently the clay. It doesn't have to be the clay. It already is the clay.
Is. Correct.
So in spirituality, you have this idea that, just be, this phrase, just be. Just wasting my time telling me that I already am.
Yeah.
But what I do want to hear is do responsibly. And when you do, you will have according to what you deserve, according to the quality of your actions. So this is still a wonderful analogy you said to me.
And yeah, so for previous discussion, so when we talk about the soul, a lot of people try to find the location of the soul. They say the soul is within my body. Some of them, they say the soul is the breath, the connecting, because when the breath leaves the body, you're not alive anymore. So it should be the breath. They try to kind of locate it, but it's a bit hard to explain. Like everything happens within awareness, even the body, mind complex, and our thoughts. Everything is within that awareness, but that's sometimes a bit,
soul leaves. So it's very simple. So when the body dies, right, assuming that you still see yourself as the pot, the only limitation we have of this is we don't see the soul. We don't see the, what they call the subtle, not what they, but right name for the soul is the subtle body. I never use the word soul. It is the subtle body or the mind. So what leaves is, leaves is the mind. Okay. And then that mind leaves. And then what does it take on? It takes the body of a different kind of a pot. Now, why does it take this body and not this body? What determines that? You know the answer, right? Your past causes, called your karma. So this means you always get a body according to the quality of your actions in this life. So if this pot is, doing its duty, it's doing its work, it's honest, it's selfless, which is selflessly selfish. Remember, it's selfless. Then, after one day it breaks, then the mind leaves, right? The subtle body leaves, and then it takes on a much more, a body which is born to parents, which will be maybe more religious, richer, or the environment will be more conducive for spiritual growth. So this is the idea of, what we call transmigration, how life circulates. There's no such thing as ending. However, when the wise person ends, when the pot, right, of a wise person, when that breaks, then there is no more leaving, because I've already understood myself as the whole thing while alive. See the difference? Whereas where was my I while I was ignorant? It was in the mind, that which leaves. So your real I as an ignorant person is not in the physical body. Where is the I? It's actually in your subtle body, right? That which leaves, right? Yeah, we could say more technical, it's actually in the causal body, but causal body will put aside. It's actually in that which leaves, right? Who you think you are. So who I think I am now takes a different body, and again, you live through this whole cycle. But while alive, what is this pot understood? That this mind and this body, what is the content of it? It is nothing but I. So now if your identity has shifted from individual to the whole, which is all pervasive, then can you truly travel? Can you truly take on something else? Can you truly take on another individual thing? No. Why? Because your identity has changed onto that which is the truth of all things, space, time, all objects, all elements. So in that sense, traveling or becoming another individual is no more possible. Therefore, now as a wise person, when they drop their body, who am I now? I'm the exact same thing that I always was, even while alive. The only difference is, which is the clay, right? The only difference is while alive, the wise pot had to bear this potness for a short while, didn't it? It still had to bear pain and pleasure and addictions, and small desires and small quirks that it all belonged to the pot, right? When that pot leaves, I am the very same clay, even while I had this pot. But no longer do I have to bear another pot. Never again do I come back as another pot. Never again do you come back as another Buona, Andre, Lorena, Greg, whatever, right? You remain everything. You are everything. In fact, you are everything right now. But right now, I have to appreciate one more thing. What is that? The empirical world. I cannot dismiss the empirical world and say the empirical world is just, some sort of lower thing, and I'm just here to kind of work out my stuff, and I'm going to leave. Where are you going to leave? The very world is you. The very world that you open your eyes is you. It's not just, we often say, me here. You got to get out of this notion that I am here. I am here. More like this, I am here. The whole thing is me. And that's already true right now. Thus, when a wise person dies, there's no more opening the eyes going, oh, I am here. I'm not over there. I am just here. Okay. And that's called moksha. So it's not like you lose yourself after you drop your physical body as a wise person. You gain everything. You see the difference? In fact, now it's almost at a loss. Right now, I'm not Radhika. Radhika knows some skills that I have no clue about. She knows some, and I wish I had Radhika skills, but I don't. So it doesn't really pay you to come back as another limited body, because you're going to come back with a limited knowledge, limited height, and you're going to say, no, you're not tall enough. You don't have six-pack. You're not 6 feet tall, and you don't make 6 figures. Now, next. And then I look at you and go, no, you don't look young enough. And you go, oh no, I missed him, right? So you have to constantly bear a certain limitation coming back as one pot. Doesn't it make sense just to solve the problem once and for all and enjoy yourself as the one in all? So it's not a small thing that we're speaking of. Let's see what else Krishna says about the wise person in verse 70. Apuryam manam achala pratishtam samudram apak pravishanti yadvat tadvat kamayam pravishanti sarve sashanti mapnoti nakama kame.
Just as water flows into the ocean that is brimful and still, so too the wise person into whom all objects enter gains peace, remains unchanged, whereas the desirer of objects does not gain peace.
So this verse is a relationship between desire and the wise person, okay? Now, what's an often cliche that we have about a wise person? Common in spirituality, right? A wise person has no desires, they are above it all, they don't need anything. That's not true. You still need food, you still want to say hello to your mom and dad, right? You still have connections, you still need all of that. So Krishna compares here, metaphorically, the wise person, Sthita-Prajna, to the ocean. Now, if you look at an ocean, what's unique about an ocean? Well, it's the fullness, right? All water is from the ocean. So when the waves leave the ocean, does the ocean start crying? Oh no, a wave has left me. You know, I've lost something. And then rain falls. Oh, I'm now happy. I've got, you know, more water. Does the ocean do that? It doesn't do that. The ocean always remains full, irrespective of the waves leaving, dying, crashing, manifesting, unmanifesting. You can have the tallest wave, it is still doesn't define the ocean. So in that sense here, the wise person is like an ocean, and the waves, which are compared to desires and experiences and objects, like Aditi was saying, they don't define me. Whereas for the unwise person, what do they want to do? They want one more hit of a spiritual experience to prove to themselves that they are full. Oh, I forgot that feeling. You know, there was this time when I had this amazing experience in the Amazon jungle, and I drank this special liquid, and I was one with all things. I've had this over 30 times, by the way, so I know what I'm talking about. And I was one with all things. And I really want to get back to that experience. So I need to go again to prove to myself that I am one with all things. This conversation belongs to an unwise person. The wise person doesn't need to chase for these experiences because it is just one of the many experiences. I am full right now, right here, like the ocean. You can give me whatever experience you want. It doesn't even come close to defining my fullness. And by the way, for those of us who have experienced infinity, as you want to call it, infinity, it is not infinity. Why? Because who experienced it?
It's time-bound.
Time-bound. And who experienced it? A mind. A mind is not infinite, and a mind that experienced infinity is not infinite. It's only infinite in reference to your mind. That's why you call it infinite. But how big is your mind? This much. You have a Deva mind, Indraloka mind. How big is their mind? Oh, infinite. Is that infinite? No. Is Brahmaji's mind infinite? No. Only Brahman alone is infinite. So whatever infinity or oneness or being all that is here, in fact, the words can't even tell or justify to what infinity means. I went through all these experiences. I know what I'm talking about. It doesn't even do justice to what infinity really means. It was a taster though, but it was not infinity. It was a nice taster, and it was certainly appreciative, but it's not infinity. For this reason, the wise person does not need to stay away from things, does not need to say, oh, you know, let me simplify my life. Let me get rid of different pots around me. Let me simplify my life and sell my house and, you know, divorce and all this and that. They don't need to do that. They're already themselves right now. And I get it. While you are yourself right now, you will have domestic affairs guaranteed. We all do. I get it. And that has to be dealt at the empirical level. That's just how it is living on Earth. You can't get rid of that. But one refuge I can take is that all of this doesn't define me. It is just an incidental coming and going of names and forms, a cosmic play that has been going on for eons. And right now, I am just one individual participating in this cosmic play, assigned to do what is to be done for a short amount of time. Let me do that to the best of my ability, and I will definitely steer away or fall off the tracks. And when I do, I'll come back on the tracks and do what has to be done. And if something needs a correction, I will find a way to make that correction. You make that assertive call, and you do what has to be done. That's what life is asking of you. Gautam?
Yeah, Andre, just this last part you said, the infinity experience. Now, if that experience is occurring, or even, you know, the final infinity that has to occur to somebody, it has to occur to mind only. And mind is the only instrument that you have to which it can occur.
Yeah.
So why should we dismiss it by saying that it is occur to mind and mind is just one part of BMI?
What I was bringing forward was that in spirituality, we get caught up with experiences, and then we say that experience was infinity. It was nice. It was a good reminder. But let's not get hung up upon it. Let's not get, kind of make a big deal out of it. So what I was saying is that, sure, it was a good taster, but understand you're much bigger than that. That's all. You needed a mind for that, didn't you? To get a taster of that infinity. The only thing you have is the mind, for sure. The only thing
What
you
is the
had.
other thing? Then what is the other thing that remains to be experienced? If that has already been experienced, then what is the other thing? That means the permanency of it, that's what you're talking of? That it will not come and go and it will remain throughout, and you won't have to say that it happened once. It has remained ever since. That's what you're saying.
Okay, let me backtrack to make sure we're on the same page. What is your question? Start from the beginning.
My question is, you said that, that experience that occurred once, that experience occurred to the mind. So my question is, in any case, any experience will occur to the mind only.
Correct.
Are you dismissing that experience because it was a one-time occurrence which has not stuck all through? That is why you're dismissing it?
Good question. It has a purpose. I'm not going to dismiss it. It definitely helped you. It pulled you through. Maybe you're here because of your oneness experiences, whatever they were. I don't know. But don't turn them and thinking that fullness was back then. See the difference, Gautam? So we get caught up and we say, I had a oneness experience, and the fullness, the one who is full, was in that experience over there. What does that imply about the person right here, right now, the I right here now? That I'm not full.
Yeah.
So now we get caught up and we say, no, I need one more of those experiences in the past to prove that I am full. I'm saying don't fall for this trap. What does a wise person understand? That anything that comes and goes is like a pot. You can call it an infinity pot, but it's still a pot. It was just a very, very big pot, a huge pot that I mistakenly call infinity, but it was not truly infinite. It was just one experience. So any experience that you have, this is important, any experience that you have is just one experience. It doesn't define the reality. That's what I want to say. The reality is already the reality.
So when you experience and you feel that now the Advaita knowledge is all that I have been craving for is now, means that that experience has come and is not leaving. And now I am Sthita-Prajna in that experience. It has not been one time. It is now, and it has been ever since I experienced it for the first time. And now it remains with me. And now I see that everything is one with me as of now, and not as one time it had been. Is it that case?
That's true. So in other words, a Sthita-Prajna understands that I don't need an experience to prove my fullness. I don't need any experience in the future or of the past to make a statement about who I am right now. I am already full in this very moment now. No experience can change that. No experience can subtract from that. That's the difference. Whereas the unwise person, they're never happy with the present I, are they? They always want to add an experience onto the present I. Or they want to draw the memory of that super cool experience on the past, and they want to sort of, revel in that and bring it into the present. And they go, oh, yes, I am one. Yeah. I remember how I was one. Wow. Let me have hope. Yes, I am one. I was one. Therefore, I am one. You see what they're doing? They're turning it into an intellectual exercise. I was one. I was one. Therefore, I can take refuge because of that memory that I am one right now. Let me see you get amnesia. How is that going to work out for you? Can you then rely on such experiences? No. So you see what the unwise person is doing? They're borrowing past experiences that they've had with gurus or substances or samadhis, and they're using and based on that, they're defining their identity right now. That means you still depend on another name and form. You still depend on another pot to give you identity in this moment. I depend on another pot, a little memory of oneness. To
A
make,
mental construct.
yeah, exactly. To make me understand that I am the clay. I am the clay already. You see the difference? I don't need a pot from the previous experience of oneness. I don't need that to define me, who I am right now. Because who was I back then? I was the clay. Who am I right now? I am the clay. Who will I be tomorrow? I am the clay. So in that sense, the wise person doesn't need these experiences of the past to tell them that they are one right now in this moment. Who was Sthita-Prajna in the Gita? Krishna. Who else was Sthita-Prajna in the Mahabharata?
Vyasa.
We'll say Krishna and Vyasa for sure. Were their lives exactly the same? No. Krishna had a palace. He was cheerful. He was, very kind of alive. What was Vyasa like?
Aesthetic.
Opposite of Krishna, right? He was very simple in his life. So look at this. Both of them are enlightened beings. Can you tell who's enlightened by one single trait? How a person lives, how they walk, how they carry themselves, whether they smile a lot, whether they're a male, a female, their age, what they wear, whether they're married, whether they're single, how they, whether they do exercise or not, whether they're, what books they're reading, whether they memorize the whole scriptures or not. Can you generalize and say one single trait defines an enlightened person, a Sthita-Prajna? Can you? Not one. You cannot tell who's a wise person based on what they're wearing or anything to do with their personalities. So what Krishna is saying is wise person is like an ocean. They are full. They understand themselves to be one without a second. The personality will still be different. You still may marry and have children and not have children and be a little bit exuberant and a little bit, sometimes awkward or sometimes goofy or social or introverted. That is all traits belonging to the pot. It doesn't belong to the clay. Thus, the wise person is like an ocean. No trait defines me. Whether the waves leave me, whether the waves come, my Swarupa is one. Always one. It's never anything but what it is right now. And in that knowledge, the wise person abides in. Purnamadav, Purnamidam, Purnat, Purnamudachyate, Purnasya, Purnamadaya, Purnam eva avashishyate. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.